My name is Mira McCoy, and at 32, I had perfected the quiet art of being overlooked. Some people learn to make themselves small. I learned to disappear. At least that's what my family preferred. A Mira who blended into wallpaper, who never asked for recognition, who stood in the background while they displayed the real successes of the McCoy family. Dad's retirement party was the perfect stage for that dynamic. A chandelier-lit ballroom, gold linens, champagne towers, 150 guests celebrating his 40-year career. People congratulated him, praised my brother Tyler's tech startup, and admired my sister Madison's corner office downtown. No one asked what I did. I stood near the back, holding sparkling water, watching everything the way I always did, quietly, from a distance. Observers recognize observers. And then Tyler swept in. Loud, magnetic, surrounded by co-founders and investors. He moved through the room like a man who believed the world rotated just slightly around him. And tonight, he'd brought the one person he desperately needed to impress. Marcus Chen, mid-50s, controlled posture, tailored suit, the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to be respected. I noticed him because he watched the room the same way I did, silently, with intent. He saw things. Too many things. When Tyler finally spotted me, I knew trouble was coming. His smile stretched a little too wide. "Mira, come meet someone." He wrapped an arm around my shoulder, tight enough to remind me where I ranked, before pulling Marcus closer. "Marcus, this is my sister, Mira McCoy. She's something." Marcus extended a polite hand. "Nice to meet you, Mira." "You too," I said. Simple, neutral. Neutrality didn't survive long in my family. Tyler leaned in, voice bright enough to draw attention from nearby tables. "Mira here is kind of our family reminder. You know, what not to do with your life." Laughter sparkled around the circle like broken glass. I kept my face calm. I'd had years of practice. Mom rushed over with a theatrical laugh meant to entertain, not soothe. "Oh, Tyler, don't tease her. She's still figuring things out." Dad clinked his champagne glass, gesturing vaguely at me. 3 successful kids and, well, Mira's independent. Translation: nothing worth bragging about. Madison arrived just in time to twist the knife. She's our cautionary tale, honestly. Laughter. From all of them. From strangers who didn't even know me, but wanted to stay in orbit around the McCoy family glow. But not Marcus. His expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened, observing every detail. Tyler, oblivious, kept performing. I'm leading a $50 million startup. Madison's killing it in marketing, and Mira's still doing freelance stuff. He made air quotes, which is adorable, honestly. More laughter. Heat rose in my chest. Anger, shame, resignation. But I stayed silent. Why explain the truth? They would never believe Mira McCoy, the quiet one, the dropout, the wanderer, was a highly paid consultant whose work had been featured in industry publications. Silence was safer. Then I saw Marcus unlock his phone. Tyler didn't notice, but I did. Marcus typed my name, scrolled, read. His expression shifted, subtle but undeniable. He slid the phone back into his pocket and looked at Tyler with an expression I had never seen directed at my brother before. Disappointment. Then Marcus spoke, his tone level and devastatingly calm. "How much of your Series B funding have you spent?" Tyler blinked, taken off script. Around 30%. "Why?" "Because," Marcus said, "I'm reconsidering my investment." The ballroom fell silent. Tyler laughed nervously. "Wait, what? Why?" Marcus gestured lightly toward the space between me and the family. What I just witnessed. Mom tried to smooth it over. "Oh, it was just a family joke." "No," Marcus said sharply. "It wasn't." And then he dropped the blow that shattered Tyler's world. "I'm withdrawing my funding, effective immediately." Tyler's face went pale. "Marcus, you can't do that." "I can. Character clause. You violated it. Review your contract." Madison froze. Mom's smile collapsed. Dad looked suddenly older, the retirement glow extinguished. Marcus gave me a respectful nod, then turned and walked out. Tyler called after him, panicked, pleading, but the investor didn't look back. For once, neither did I. I placed my untouched sparkling water on a nearby table and walked toward the exit while chaos rippled behind me. I didn't need to see their faces to know who they'd blame. By the time I reached my car, my phone began vibrating nonstop. Tyler, then Mom, then Madison, then Tyler again. I let it ring. Because after 32 years of being their punchline, someone finally heard the joke and didn't laugh. I didn't turn my phone back on until the next morning. And the moment I did, Notifications exploded like shrapnel. 24 missed calls, 11 voicemails, and a storm of texts from family numbers I knew by heart and wished I could delete from memory. Tyler's first message: Mira, answer your phone. This is serious. The next: you need to fix this. Fix this, of course. Because in my family's world, a woman who stayed small was responsible for every mess made by those who stood tall. I ignored the messages, made coffee, opened my laptop, and tried to get through my morning client updates. But my phone rang again, this time from the landline at my parents' house. That meant Mom. I sighed and answered. Mira, she said breathlessly, your brother is in crisis. Everything is falling apart. You need to help him. There was no hello, just immediate blame. I don't need to do anything, I replied calmly. You embarrassed him in front of an investor. I laughed, quietly, painfully. I didn't embarrass him. He embarrassed me. Marcus just happened to notice. Mom scoffed. It was just teasing. No, I said sharply. Teasing happens in private. That was public humiliation. She fell silent. For a moment, I thought she understood. But then, your brother's company might collapse, Mira. People rely on him. Employees. Families. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. She never changed her script. Mom, I said slowly, he should have thought about them before he mocked me in front of everyone. You're being vindictive. I'm being honest. I hung up and blocked the house phone. Tyler, meanwhile, was unraveling in real time. At noon, he sent me the formal email. Marcus Chen, funding withdrawal notice. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Legal language, 30-day notice, return of equity, clawback provisions. Then the paragraph that would haunt Tyler in every investor circle he ever entered. After observing the founder publicly humiliate a family member at a private event, investor finds a fundamental incompatibility of character. Character. The one thing Tyler believed he didn't need, as long as he performed success convincingly enough. I stared at the email, half stunned, half numb. Then my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. Against all logic, I answered. Mira. Tyler's voice. Ragged. Panicked. You didn't have to let him write that. I leaned back, eyebrow raised. You're the one who gave him the material, Tyler. I didn't mean any of it. You meant it every time. Last night was just the first time someone with power heard you. He let out a shuddering breath. I'm screwed. Our payroll is due next week. Our other investors want meetings. My co-founders are furious. I need your help, Mir. You have connections, consultants, corporate people, supply chain. Stop, I said. He did. Why? I asked softly. Would I help you? Dead silence. Then, in a small voice I had never heard from him, because I'm your brother. I let the words hang between us, symbols of a bond he'd never treated as real. Tyler, I said, you only remember I'm your sister when you need something. That's not true. Name one time you defended me. He didn't speak. Because he couldn't. I ended the call. He immediately called back. Blocked. That afternoon, an email arrived from someone unexpected. Robert Chen Sr., VP of Operations, a former client. Subject, last night. I opened it. Mira, I attended your father's retirement party. I didn't realize you were his daughter until the incident with your family. I've worked with you on the Walmart distribution project. You saved us $40 million in annual inefficiencies. I want you to know what your brother said was cruel and completely untrue. If you ever need a reference, I am here. I reread the email. My throat tightened. Someone had seen me, not just professionally, but seen what I endured behind the facade of family. Validation should not have felt emotional, but it did. Then, hours later, another email. Marcus Chen, subject, apology. My heart gave a strange, quick jolt. I opened it. Mira, I hope this message finds you well. I want to apologize for putting you in an uncomfortable position last night. When I reviewed your credentials, I found a Forbes profile, published research, and extensive documentation of your work with major U.S. retailers. I was disturbed by the contrast between your accomplishments and your family's treatment of you. My decision to withdraw funding was a business one, but also a moral one. If you ever need a professional reference, a connection, or an introduction, I'm at your disposal. Regards, Marcus Chen. I read it 3 times. Then I typed back. Thank you for seeing what others refuse to. You have nothing to apologize for. You made the right call. Mira. I hit send. And for the first time in years, I felt seen, not by my family, but by people who actually mattered. Meanwhile, Tyler's world continued collapsing. Week 1, he missed payroll. Employees quit. Co-founders demanded answers. Week 2, investors withdrew. Marcus's network was powerful. Week 3, his co-founders resigned. The board dissolved. Week 4, the The company folded, office lease terminated, website taken down. 4 weeks earlier, Tyler McCoy stood at the center of a ballroom, bragging about his empire.
Dan.
Now he had nothing. But life, with its strange symmetry, wasn't done yet. Because just as his world collapsed, my world expanded. A new email, subject line, consulting inquiry, referred by Marcus Chen, a Fortune 100 retailer, 8-month contract, 7-figure fee. I sat back stunned. Marcus had not only defended me, he had opened a door my own family never bothered to knock on. Maybe success didn't skip generations. Maybe my family just never recognized what success looked like on me. And maybe, for the first time, I didn't care. 2 months passed. 2 months of headlines in startup circles, whispered rumors, LinkedIn, think pieces about character clauses and ethical leadership. The Forbes article dropped quietly but detonated loudly. It didn't name Tyler, but it didn't have to. A prominent investor withdrew $8 million in funding after witnessing the founder publicly humiliate a family member who is, ironically, an award-winning consultant in the logistics sector. People connected the dots instantly. Tyler's inbox turned poisonous, mine filled with consulting offers. The universe has a dark sense of balance. Madison was the first sibling to crack. She texted, "We need to talk." I didn't want to, but I called anyway. "Mira," she said, voice tight. "What do you want, Madison?" "I just want to apologize." "For what?" I asked, genuinely curious what she would pick. That night, things got out of hand. We were all just joking. "No," I said quietly, "you weren't." "I didn't mean—" "You called me the family cautionary tale. That wasn't a joke, Madison. That was a belief." Silence. Then, "I was uncomfortable. Tyler shouldn't have done that." "Were you uncomfortable when Mom laughed? When Dad pointed at me? Or just when the consequences landed?" More silence. "People are blaming Tyler," she whispered. "They say he lacks character." "He does." "Mira!" "Tell me I'm wrong." She couldn't. Finally. "I'm sorry you felt hurt." I let out a soft breath of disbelief. "That's not an apology," I said, and I hung up. She didn't call back. Then, unexpectedly, Dad reached out. I'd unblocked him weeks earlier out of morbid curiosity. His voice was quieter than I remembered. "Mira, I've been thinking a lot." "About what?" "About how we treated you. That night. Before that night. A long time before." A pause. "I'm sorry." It wasn't clean or elegant, but it was real. So I didn't shut the door. "Thank you," I said. "That doesn't mean everything is fixed." "I know," he said softly. "I just want to start somewhere." We ended the call on uneven ground, but ground that existed at all. That was something. Tyler was last to appear. 6 weeks after the collapse, he came to my apartment again. I opened the door this time. He looked smaller. Not physically, but spiritually. Like the pedestal he'd built himself on had finally crumbled, and now he didn't know how to stand without it. He shuffled inside, sat on the couch, hands clasped. "I lost everything," he said quietly. "My company, my savings. Investors won't return my calls. I'm applying for jobs I never thought I'd need." I nodded. "And I deserved it," he added. That caught me off guard. "I've been working with a therapist," he continued. "She says I grew up needing to win, that anything I couldn't categorize as success felt like a threat." I studied him. For the first time, he wasn't performing. He wasn't charming. He wasn't loud. He was honest. "I'm sorry, Mira," he said, voice breaking slightly. "For that night. For every comment. For acting like your worth depended on my definition of success." It was the apology I should have heard years ago. But hearing it now, it didn't fix everything, but it mattered. I let out a long breath. "Okay," I said. "That's it?" he asked. "What do you want?" I replied. "Forgiveness?" He hesitated. "Yes." "I don't have that for you yet," I said softly. "Maybe one day, but not today." He nodded slowly. It was the first time he'd ever accepted my boundary. He stood to leave, paused at the door. "Mira," he said, "were you really as successful as Marcus claimed?" I met his eyes. "I always was," I said. "You just never looked." He closed his eyes, a quiet, painful truth settling into him. Then he left. 6 months later, everything changed again. A national supply chain conference. The biggest of the year. 400 attendees. I was the keynote speaker. Standing backstage, I felt the same old nerves coil in my stomach, ghosts of a girl who had spent years being told she was nothing. But when I stepped onto that stage and saw the packed audience leaning forward to hear me, something inside me straightened. I spoke for 40 minutes about logistics, efficiency frameworks, case studies, lessons I had learned alone, not inherited from a family legacy. The applause was thunderous. As I walked off stage, someone was waiting for me. Tyler. He looked peaceful. That was incredible, he said. I had no idea you were this respected. I know, he swallowed. I'm proud of you. I nodded, accepting it without giving it more power than it deserved. You should have been proud years ago, I said. I know, he whispered. It wasn't reconciliation, not fully, but it was recognition. And that was enough for now. Later that evening, in the hotel bar, I wasn't expecting Marcus. But he sat beside me like fate had sent him. Mira, he said warmly, you were the highlight of the conference. I smiled. Didn't know you were here. Advisory board. I attend when someone interesting is speaking. We talked for nearly an hour. Industry shifts, leadership ethics, quiet success versus loud mediocrity. The kind of conversation I had never been allowed to have in my own family. Then he said something that stayed with me. You know, your brother didn't lose everything because of you. He took a sip of his drink. He lost everything because the person he pretended to be couldn't survive the truth. I stared at my glass. He was right. I didn't ruin Tyler. Tyler revealed Tyler. Marcus stood to leave, offering a small smile. I hope you realize something, Mira, he said. You're not invisible anymore. People finally see you, and you earned that, not in spite of your family, but entirely on your own. When he walked away, I sat alone at the bar for a long moment. Not triumphant, not vindicated, just quietly complete, because the one person who had spent her whole life trying to be seen finally stopped trying. And that's when the world noticed. 3 years passed. 3 years since the retirement party. 3 years since the humiliation that backfired so violently it reshaped every life connected to mine. 3 years since Tyler learned that consequences don't negotiate. A lot can change in 3 years. My world became bigger than I had ever allowed myself to imagine. I wasn't just consulting anymore, I was choosing my clients. 3 Fortune 100 companies, 2 books under contract, international speaking circuits, panels, interviews, features in business magazines. People recognized me in airports. Companies waited months for me to open a slot in my schedule. My work finally spoke louder than the silence I had kept for 32 years. But the strangest part? I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady, like I'd finally reached the version of myself I had always been, just no longer obscured by a family who refused to look. My family drifted in their own directions. Mom and Dad sent polite holiday cards now, respectful, distant, like they were trying to start over without knowing how. I responded with polite thank you notes, respectful, distant. Some bridges don't need rebuilding. Sometimes acknowledgement is enough. Madison didn't reach out. I didn't either. Some relationships aren't broken. They're simply unnecessary. Tyler was different. He worked at a mid-level logistics firm now, got promoted to senior manager. Nothing flashy, nothing glamorous. But honest work has a way of reshaping a person. We texted occasionally, short, practical messages. He'd ask about a supply chain bottleneck. I'd answer. He'd send a photo of a project he was proud of. I'd send a thumbs up. We weren't close, but we weren't enemies. We were simply 2 adults with shared history and different futures. And that was enough. Then, last week, a package arrived at my door. No return label, just my name, handwritten. I opened it and froze. Inside was a carefully wrapped copy of Forbes magazine, the original profile from 2022, the one Marcus had seen the night of the party. Tucked inside was a note in handwriting I recognized instantly. Mira, I finally read it. All of it. You were always successful. I just wasn't looking. T. I sat down slowly, the magazine heavy in my hands. Tyler had never read it back then, never Googled me, never cared. But he cared now. Not because he needed anything, not because he wanted forgiveness, but because, for the first time in his life, he saw me, and he chose to say it. Not loudly, not theatrically, quietly, honestly, in the only way that mattered. Later that evening, I placed the magazine on my bookshelf. Not as a trophy, not as revenge, but as a reminder. A reminder that success is not measured by who claps for you. It's measured by whether you stop needing the people who never would. A reminder that recognition from the wrong eyes is meaningless. And recognition from the right ones arrives precisely when you stop performing for it. A reminder that I didn't ruin my brother's life. He simply revealed his own truth in front of the one man who cared about character. And a reminder that the woman they spent 32 years dismissing became a woman they could no longer ignore. I've learned something since that night. You don't need to prove yourself to people who refuse to see you. You don't need to shrink for people who fear your shape. You don't need to explain your worth to people invested in your failure. And you never need to light yourself on fire to keep their illusions warm. Some stories end in dramatic revenge. Some end in broken families. Some end in reconciliation. Mine ends differently. My brother lost everything trying to impress an investor. I gained everything because that investor finally bothered to look. Not because of karma, not because of fate, because I was already successful. Someone just finally noticed.